Hey everyone, it's Crystal, and today I would like to go over the what the heck did I read for the month of September and October. Now, I know that normally I like to do these once a month, but the last couple months have been crazy. I work out at the Minnesota Renaissance Festival, which takes up 2 months of my life, going from August right through to the beginning of October. Then, of course, after that was Halloween season, which means lots of fun stuff's going on there too. And it's my birthday, so much was wrapped up all at once. I am sorry I haven't had a chance to post a lot of videos recently, but that's going to change now that that is all done. And so let's get into the what the heck did I read for September and October. Keep watching. So the first books that I read, actually I read a series which is my favorite childhood series. It's the one that got me into reading. It is the Enchanted Forest Chronicles by Patricia C. Reed. It includes Dealing with Dragons, Searching for Dragons, Calling on Dragons, and Talking to Dragons. Now, this series is what got me into reading when I was a little girl. It is basic fantasy. You have magicians, you have obviously dragons, you have princesses, you have kings, you have witches, you have magic spells, you have all this interesting stuff going on. But the first book is all about turning it on its head. So the princess does not want to be a princess. So she runs away from her family's castle and goes and finds dragons. She asks if she can be their princess and learn from them, and that's essentially where the series starts. She keeps being the princess's or the dragon's princess and telling the princes that come to rescue her that she has no interest in being rescued. She's happy where she's at until something comes up, which is normal, but I highly recommend that you check it out. It's a 4-book series. It's really great. Patricia C. Reed is actually a local author, I found out, and so I am so happy to support our local authors. Check her out. They're fabulous for the whole family. Please, please, please read them. Okay, so the next book that I read was actually Timeless from the Parasol Proctorate. It is by Gail Carriger? Yes, Gail Carriger. And it is the fifth book in the series about steampunk and / paranormal. So they have werewolves, they have vampires, but it's really heavy in the steampunk genre, and it's a really good continuation of the story. They go to Egypt in this one, so I thought that was a lot of fun. I would recommend checking it out if you like steampunk books. Okay guys, so the next book that I read has been blasted all over YouTube about how awesome it is and everything that goes on with it, and it's Shatter Me. Now, I read it. The writing is eloquent. It is really engaging, but I was not as thrilled with the premise of the story. Just being me. Now, it takes its ideas a little bit from the Hunger Games / it's post-apocalyptic, but it's also, it has a twist at the end that I don't want to give away, but I felt like, oh really, that was your big kicker? So everybody else on YouTube loves it. It is a good book. The writing, like I said, is beautiful. It is delicate, and I loved the poetry behind the writing. I wish the plot line and the premise of the story was a little bit higher up, but that's just me. Anyways, go check out Shatter Me. It was a really good read, and I know there's 50 billion other reviews on YouTube already about it, so I'll let you check those out too. Okay guys, I decided to get a little classic on this one. So the next book that I read was The Epic of Gilgamesh. Yes, I decided to take on tablets. Now, no, I did not read it in the original text because nobody reads that text anymore. It is a dead language, and in fact, they still weren't able to interpret all of the symbols when they tried to compare it to the Rosetta Stone and figure it out, but it is one of the oldest works of literature that can be found in the world, or that has been found in the world, excuse me. And so I read an interpretation, and I thought it was really interesting how deep some of the story could be, considering how long ago it was written. And this is, you know, we're talking cuneiform here, we're talking ancient language, and it had a story of the gods and of a journey and traveling and working with other people and dealing with other spiritual animals, and it was just a really interesting story. Very chopped up because, like I said, there was not a lot of they couldn't continuously interpret the whole thing, but you still got the plot, you still got the gist. It was a really good story considering it was written thousands of years ago. So if you're interested, it is a quick read unless you go into all the explanations of why this translation was used. That's where the story gets long, but if you're interested, check it out. The next book that I read was The Aeronaut's Windlass by Jim Butcher. Now, I love me a good Jim Butcher, and he decided that he was going to go into the steampunk genre, so I figured, might as well check it out. This is not a traditional steampunk book where it brings in any form of supernatural, fantasy, that sort of thing. It really sticks to the crystal cores and ether and building civilization off of that. Not a lot of Victorian there either, but it was a really engaging story, had really creepy characters in there, or creatures in there. I don't want to spoil it for you, but I'm a little bit arachnophobic, just a smidge, and they kind of play a role in the book, a pretty big role, so it kept me on the edge of my seats. I really enjoyed it, but I love Jim Butcher, so if you are interested in reading something that is different from his Dresden series, I recommend it you check it out, because anything from Jim Butcher is almost guaranteed to be a fabulous book. Okay guys, so the next book that I read actually, admittedly, took me a couple months to get through. I started it, had to stop, and then I waited a couple months before I picked it back up, and it's The Book Thief. This is a very well-known book. It has to do with World War II and Nazis, specifically this little town that is right next to one of the concentration camps, and how little the town actually knew what was going on, but they had the influences of the, you know, the government there, and you see it from a kid's perspective growing up, and it's a very intense very deep book, and it took me a while to get through just because it was so intense and so deep. And so it is definitely one that I would pace myself on if I were to ever read it again. I'm happy that I did, but it's not one that is going to be the light, fun reading like some of the other books that I've mentioned. Fabulous book though. It's won awards. I recommend you check it out if you're wanting something that's a little bit more intense and definitely heartfelt. It made me cry at the end. And the last book that I read for the month of September, yes, that was a lot of books that I read in the month of September, was The Great Zoo of China, and that one was from Matthew Reilly. Now, Matthew Reilly does more action-adventure sorts of books. I wanted to break away from the fantasy. As you saw in the beginning, I read a lot of fantasy, and I wanted something that was a little bit more based in the real world. And so this is a story that obviously talks about China, and they're trying to become popular, and they want to do the next big thing that could compare to Disney World, essentially, or, you know, any of those other big draws, the big amusements. And so they were going to create this big zoo in China, and you find out that the zoo is actually not your normal zoo. Inside the zoo, it is, well, let's just flat out say there are dragons. That's not really spoiling much. You're gonna find that out in the first 10 pages. It has a very strong Jurassic Park feel, and actually in the book Matthew Reilly does reference Jurassic Park because this is supposedly taking place after the movie came out, so some of the characters make the connection back, going, this is horrible, we should have known better, we saw this movie coming. but it's very action-packed like I expect from Matthew Riley, very engaging, keeps you on the edge of your seat. If you want something that's gonna get your heart pounding, check it out. And that brings us to the month of October. What the heck did I read? Are you guys getting tired yet? I know I am, but we still got a whole chunk left to do. The next book that I read was The Book of Life. That is the third book in the All Souls trilogy, and that one is by Deborah Harkness. So I am buddy reading this with Fala from Fandom and Books, and I will go ahead and link her channel below. She is an awesome woman, and we are going to actually chit-chat about this on Thursday, so I'm super excited about that, and hopefully we'll get a little live video going so I can talk more about it. But this book series is exactly what calls to me as a reader. It has to do with fantasy, it has to do with libraries and books, and it has to do with history, and it's everything that makes my mouth drool. So keep an eye out for a full review coming up here, hopefully. If not, check it out. It is one of my favorite series this has turned into of almost any book that I've read, and I highly recommend that you check it out. And then I decided that I was going to get into a mid-grade book, so I went back to Percy Jackson and read book 2, which is The Sea of Monsters. So that is a book where he picks up and has to go on another journey to save, basically, Camp Half-Blood and figure out what's going on there, because he tried to go in and everything is destroyed and his friends are all in trouble, and the camp counselors have been switched around for these bad people, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So it's a normal Percy Jackson thing. You get a lot of Greek mythos in there, lots of fun. It is a mid-grade read, so it's very quick. The characters are really young, contrary to the movies that make them seem a heck of a lot older, which kind of threw me off in my head because I hadn't seen the movie first before I read the book. But it was a very enjoyable read. It's a lot of fun. Check it out. Then I decided to go back to another Matthew Riley book that I have not read before, and I decided to read The Tournament. Now, The Tournament is a book that differs from the rest of his styles of writing, whereas it's not so boom action based. This is very strategic. This is very subtle almost, and it's based off of Queen Elizabeth in those years, in those formative years before she became the queen, and she was still third in line for the throne, and learning from her tutors, she didn't think that she had any chance in ruling whatsoever, so her tutor decides to take her to Constantinople, where they're having this worldwide chess tournament. And just like a chess game, the book progresses in ways that you don't expect. And it's not moves that would necessarily be forethought, and you don't see them coming. So it was a really refreshing change from Matthew Riley. Whereas his books are always so engaging, so enjoyable. This was too, but on a more intellectual level. So if you really want something that has history in it, and he doesn't bounce back and forth like some of his other books where they have history bleeds into present, that was completely in that time period. I recommend looking it up because it was a wonderful read and really kept me engaged. Okay, so two more books that I read were the second and the third book in the Poison Study trilogy, or the Study trilogy, I guess, by Maria V. Snyder. I did Magic Study and I did Fire Study. So a couple months ago, I had started Poison Study again. It is one of my favorite books. This is one of my favorite series. I just decided that I wanted to reread it because one of my best friends read it for the first time, Shannon, and so we're hoping to maybe get a live show out of this. Keep an eye out on our Facebook page, but it's a good refresher, especially since it has been a number of years since I've read it, and I love this series. My heart goes out to Yelena every time I hear what's going on. Her being pulled between so many different things, which country, which family versus, you know, the family she's created versus magic versus this versus that. It's such a wonderful series that I recommend you read it because it stole my heart from the moment that I read it. So I want the whole world to become Poison Study fans. I really do. And then the last book that I read for the month of October is Silverborn. It is a Mercy Thompson series book. I believe it's book 5. And that author is Patricia Briggs. Now, this is a book that goes back to the fantasy genre, and we're talking werewolves, but we're not talking werewolves completely because she's not a werewolf. She's actually a coyote, but she was raised in a pack of wolves. Her mate is of the wolf pack, and she's trying to survive in this pack of wolves even though she's not a wolf. And just like all the other stories, something happens. I was okay with this story. It felt a little jostled around. I didn't get as much completion out of it as I wanted. Semi-anticlimactic on the big thing that was supposed to be going on. Meh. But you know, it's a series that I enjoy. It's definitely a book that I pick up at my leisure. So if you're interested in a different form of were dynamics, you can definitely look this up. Okay, everyone, that's the books that I read for September and October. It was quite a mouthful and a lot of books to go over. Like I said, there are a couple that are going to be having individual reviews, whether it be on YouTube Live or Facebook Live. Keep your eyes out on the Facebook page for Digital and Vellum, and then also keep an eye on Instagram, Twitter. Give me a thumbs up if you really enjoyed this video here and support your small town YouTuber, as well as I recommend keeping an eye out in the next couple weeks or so. I am going into the conglomeration or the collaboration of Geek by Numbers. This is something that if you were on my Facebook page a number of months ago, we had talked about at a convention, and it's basically a whole group of us media geeks that decided to get together. Late to the Party, Best Threesome Ever, both of those are podcasts, and then a web series that's in development right now called The Lair. So with me in there, it's the 4 of us right now, the 4 groups of us that are deciding to create a parent company so we can become a network for nerds kind of thing. And so hopefully in the next couple weeks, we're hoping to launch a Kickstarter by Black Friday, so those of you in the giving mood can keep an eye out. But what that'll allow us to do is grow our subscriber base, grow our businesses here, allow us to nurture other small nerd businesses. That way they can help give back to the world. So keep an eye out. It's something that I'm very passionate about, and that's another thing that's been taking up a lot of my time. We literally just signed contracts today. Oh. Please, again, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. I'm on the YouTube here. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe, watch my other videos, and I will keep you posted on what's going on in my world. Thanks so much, guys. You have a good day. Bye.